There is a moment right before a match at the Cincinnati Open when the usual hush of a tennis crowd simply refuses to arrive. Instead, there are flags, hundreds of them, red and blue and gold, rippling above a sea of people who did not come here quietly. There is a chant building in the stands, Alex. Alex. And it does not sound like polite applause. It sounds like a home crowd. In Ohio, at a WTA 1000 event that has never, in its history, belonged to one player like this. Tournament officials did not expect it. Opposing players did not expect it. And by the time anyone at the Lindner Family Tennis Center understood what was happening, it was already too late to plan for it. Alex Eala had arrived in Cincinnati, and she had brought an army with her. This was not supposed to be new. It happened first in Toronto. At the National Bank Open, Filipino fans packed a 12,500-seat arena and turned it into something closer to a Philippine Basketball Association game than a tennis match, loud, physical with emotion, unwilling to sit still. Toronto is home to more than 272,000 Filipinos, so perhaps that could be explained away as a numbers game. A big diaspora, a big turnout. Cincinnati broke that theory. Ohio's Filipino-American population sits at roughly 17,000, a fraction of Toronto's. And yet, the flags kept coming, the chants kept coming. Somehow, the following did not shrink when it crossed the border. It simply reorganized itself and showed up again. Because these were never casual fans. One group of friends built their entire college reunion around a trip to Cincinnati just to be in the stands when Eala played. Another supporter had already followed her through the National Bank Open in Toronto and then got in a car and drove 8 hours straight to Cincinnati for one more chance to watch her compete. That is not fandom in the ordinary sense. That is devotion measured in gas money and vacation days. And the tournament felt it structurally. Organizers moved Eala's matches to larger courts to handle the crowds. Ticket demand reached levels staff said they had never experienced before, the same scramble that had already overwhelmed the Canadian Open weeks earlier. 2 tournaments, 2 countries, 1 player, and the same problem both times. How do you build a venue big enough for a following that keeps growing faster than the schedule can accommodate it? Even the players felt it. Coco Gauff, sharing a tour with Eala, put it simply, "I like that Alex brings a whole new demographic to the Huta Tour." Naomi Osaka has acknowledged the same wave of support. And Renee Stubbs, the former world No. 1 in doubles, described what it is actually like to walk onto a court across from Eala now. "That is what you are getting every time you play Alex," Stubbs said. "So you have to be mentally prepared to deal with that." She added something that mattered even more, that Eala is going to pull a wave of young kids into tennis behind her. And that alone will help the sport grow. Andy Roddick went further still, framing it as a gift to the entire game. "If we could bring hundreds of millions of people because she's playing," Roddick said, "well, then I'm going to cheer for that. Because it's better for tennis. For a sport that has spent years talking about the need for more global stars outside North America and Europe. Eala is not a talking point anymore. She is proof. Eala herself has never treated this like background noise." On social media, after Toronto, she wrote in Tagalog thanking her fans for showing up, admitting it was difficult to put into words, but very easy to be grateful for you all. She said she was feeling the love in ways that I will probably only fully appreciate later. Speaking afterward, partly in her native language, she said it plainly. "It's an amazing experience. It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and enjoying tennis. Hopefully it will help grow the sport as well, and in the end give them something new and joyful." But here is what makes Cincinnati more than a celebration. Eala is not arriving as a feel-good story riding on borrowed momentum. She is arriving exhausted, and she is arriving dangerous. The stretch before Cincinnati was brutal. 8 matches in roughly 12 days. After her run in Toronto ended, she did not pretend the toll wasn't real. "I am as tired as one can be at this stage," she admitted. It is a rare thing an athlete riding the biggest wave of public adoration in her sport's history, saying out loud that her body is running on empty. So she stopped. She took the break she needed rather than forcing her way through it, and by the time Cincinnati arrived, she framed it as recovery, not retreat. "I think I've really played well in the past weeks, and I think I'm healthy, which is something I'm super grateful for," she said. "I'm counting my blessings, and I'm taking the lessons that I've had from these 2 weeks and hopefully implementing them even more in a better way in Cincinnati and New York." That is not the language of someone coasting on a viral moment. That is the language of someone building toward something. And the numbers back her up. Eala enters Cincinnati as the No. 17 seed, the highest seeding of her career at a WTA 1000 event. A first-round bye sends her straight into the second round, where she will face either Elena Gabriela Ruse or Magda Linette. It is a modest, technical detail buried inside a much bigger story, but it is also a quiet marker of how far she has come. A year ago, seedings like this at this level were not guaranteed. Now they are simply expected. To understand why a tennis crowd in Ohio would chant a name that 2 years ago most of them had never heard, you have to go back further. Eala picked up a racket for the first time at 4 years old. In 2022, she became the first Filipino player to win a junior Grand Slam. A nation with no prior tennis star suddenly had one at the junior level, and the sport back home noticed immediately. Then, in March 2025, came the run that changed everything. A stunning charge to the semi-finals of the Miami Open, where she defeated 3 Grand Slam champions along the way, including Iga Swiatek. It was the kind of result that does not just build a ranking, it builds belief, both in the player and in everyone watching from a country that had never had a reason to watch tennis before. In 2026, she kept going, becoming the first Filipina to win a Grand Slam singles main draw match at the US Open. And then the breakthrough arrived in full, her first Double Tartar Tour singles title. At the Washington Open, where she beat 3 top-seeded players en route to the final, including world no. 3 Jessica Pegula, who she defeated for the title itself. Pegula, standing on the losing side of that final, did not sound bitter about what she'd witnessed. She turned to the crowd and said, "This is the best Monday final crowd I've seen." Then, to the Filipino fans specifically, "You guys are so helping to grow tennis around the world." That is the arc that brought Cincinnati to its feet before Eala had even played a match there. Maria Sharapova, Boris Becker, Roger Federer, Andy Roddick, some of the sport's most recognizable names, have all taken a moment to acknowledge what she is building. And a tournament director in Toronto said her presence alone had generated upward of 5,000 ticket sales. So when the flags went up in Cincinnati and the chants started before the first serve, it was not really a surprise. It was the natural next step of a story that has been accelerating for a year, a story about a country that had never produced a tennis star. And a 20-year-old who decided that fact was not permanent. The question now is simple, and it is the only question that actually matters heading into the second round. After everything Cincinnati has already given her, the crowd, the seeding, the moment, can Alex Eala still deliver the tennis to match it? She says she's healthy. She says she's ready. She says the lessons from these last 2 weeks are already being applied. Cincinnati is where we find out if she's right. And if she is, New York is next. If you want to follow every step of Alex Eala's breakthrough season as it happens, subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is far from finished.